The American Express Platinum card now costs $799 a year in Canada. That's not a typo. Before you earn a single point or enter a single lounge, you're already almost $800 in the hole.
And if you search for reviews, most of what you find is about the American card. You get Uber credit, Saks credit, streaming credits, and perks that Canadians simply do not get. It's very helpful if you happen to live in Ohio.
So today we're answering the question Canadians actually need answered. What do we get for $799? How much of that fee can we realistically earn back? Also, who should absolutely not get this card?
Now, we've been American Express members for 15 years, and we are going to show you the benefits that we genuinely use.
By the end, we'll give you our break-even number because the Amex Platinum can be worth more than its fee, but only for a very particular kind of Canadian traveler.
So let's begin with the part that hurts. The annual fee for the Canadian Personal Platinum Card is $799 Canadian. A Supplementary Platinum Card is another $250. Now, although you could get 2 Supplementary Gold cards, they're currently available without an annual fee, but they don't have the same perks.
No. So that means that this card has to prove itself every single year. The welcome offer may make year 1 look fantastic, but welcome offers change, usually require several spending targets, and existing cardholders then don't receive them again each year. The honest test is not whether the first year bonus beats the fee. The real test is whether the card still earns its place in your wallet in year 2, year 5, or in our case, after more than a decade.
So let's talk about the value. The easiest value comes from 2 annual credits.
First, there is a $200 annual travel credit. It applies to one eligible booking of at least $200 through American Express Travel Online or Platinum Card Travel Service. But remember, it resets on your card anniversary and does not roll over.
Second, there is a $200 annual dining credit. After enrolling, you need a one dine-in transaction of at least $200 at a participating Canadian restaurant. That's important. It resets each calendar year and the restaurant list can change.
If you would naturally use both credits, well, then $400 comes straight off that $800 fee. Your effective cost is now $400.
But we're not calling a credit fee money if it makes you book a more expensive hotel or eat at a restaurant that you would never choose anyway. A $200 credit only has a $200 value if it replaces $200 you were going to spend anyway.
There's also up to a $100 NEXUS statement credit every 4 years. So annualized, that's about $25 a year. Useful, but let's not pretend that it pays the mortgage or has a ton of value here. After that, our rough remaining cost is $374. That's if you even use NEXUS. Not many Canadians are crossing the border at this point, so NEXUS is only good if you're a frequent flyer or cross into the US for business regularly.
Now, on to the fun stuff, because this section is where the card can cross the break-even line quickly. The American Express Platinum includes the American Express Global Lounge Collection, which currently advertises more than 1,550 lounges across 140 countries.
And that network includes Centurion lounges and participating Priority Pass, Plaza Premium, Escape, and other partner lounges. We've even used Delta Sky Club, but that access has its own rules, including flying on an eligible same-day Delta flight, so always check the lounge finder before assuming that you cover.
Now, here's a very important point. Priority Pass is not automatic. You must enroll before your trip. You can do that on the American Express website when you are signed into your Platinum card. Just look for the travel rewards benefits.
Now, before you fly, download the app, make sure the digital membership card is active, and check the guest rules for the exact lounge you plan to use.
That last part, it matters, because guest access is not one universal promise across every lounge.
We don't value every single lounge visit at an inflated day pass price either. We ask what we would otherwise buy at the airport. If 2 of us would spend about $50 on food and coffee, 8 lounge visits in a year represents roughly $400 of practical value.
So that already covers the remaining $374 for us. You get the quieter seat, free Wi-Fi, a workspace, occasional shower, and a lot of bonuses. Some lounges are excellent with alcohol and non-alcohol beverage options, hot meals, cappuccino, and even bar service where you can get cocktails. Some are just nicer waiting rooms with muffins and a lot of ambition.
So look at it this way. If you fly twice a year and normally bring a sandwich, your lounge value may be close to zero. This is why the same card can be a bargain for us and a terrible deal for somebody else.
And here's another important point to consider. Currently, Canadian-issued American Express Platinum cards include unlimited complimentary access to Priority Pass lounges. But this changes to only 6 free visits per calendar year starting January 1st, 2027.
Now, we always thought that this was the best perk for frequent travelers, but you need to weigh how much you travel first. You can purchase Priority Pass, which gives you similar lounge access, for about 658 Canadian dollars. That gives you unlimited lounge access. But then there's also the Priority Pass standard membership, which gives you 10 free entrances, and it costs about $461 Canadian. For how much we travel a year, we do find that the Platinum card is worth it.
The hotel benefits are another reason we keep the card. Fine hotels and resorts bookings can include breakfast for 2 and a guaranteed 4 p.m. late checkout. You get Wi-Fi, a property benefit, and, when available, noon check-in and a room upgrade.
At the right hotel, breakfast for 2 plus the property credit can be worth hundreds of dollars just on one stay. A guaranteed 4 o'clock checkout before an evening flight? That's not just a perk, it's actually emotional support.
But all these bookings must go through the eligible Amex channel, and the Amex rate is not always the cheapest rate on the internet.
So make sure to compare the total cost here. If an Amex booking is $150 more than booking direct, then your $200 property credit is not really worth $200. It's worth about $50.
Okay, now our favorite benefit is that you can also enroll for complimentary status with participating hotels and car rental programs. With American Express Platinum in Canada, we are automatic Marriott Gold and Hilton Honors Gold. That allows us to check in early, get late checkouts, get room upgrades, and a lot of other perks. Make sure to check your member benefits dashboard for the current partners, and remember, always enroll in advance and add those membership numbers to your reservation. The card includes a broad package of travel protections, including emergency medical insurance, trip cancellation and interruption, flight and baggage delay, lost or stolen baggage, travel accident coverage, and car rental theft and damage insurance.
But listen, a list of insurance names is not the same as being fully covered. The emergency medical benefit is for eligible travelers under age 65 and covers the first 15 consecutive days of a covered trip, subject to the policy. For longer trips, travelers 65 and older or pre-existing medical conditions or costs above the limits, you may need separate or top-up coverage. So the rule is phone, tell them what medications you're on, what conditions you have, and see if you're covered. A couple $100 of more insurance can save you thousands if something goes wrong.
Now, the car rental coverage also has conditions. You generally need to charge the full rental to the card and decline the rental company's collision or loss damage waiver. So it doesn't mean that every vehicle, every country, every liability claim or rental situation is covered.
So it always pays to call and double check. And remember, the primary driver also has to use their Amex Platinum for that booking.
Exactly. Now, this card is surprisingly good at giving you benefits that you can easily fail to use. Many of the perks need enrollment ahead of time, and some Amex offers must be saved to the card before you spend.
Our advice here is to open the benefits dashboard as soon as the card arrives. Enroll in everything you see there that's relevant. Add reset dates to your calendar and check Amex offers regularly.
Now, if Pearson International Airport in Toronto is your home airport, the calculation gets a lot easier. Eligible card members can request QR code access to selected priority security lanes in Terminals 1 and 3 for themselves and companions traveling on the same itinerary.
There's also complimentary valet service at Terminal 1 when the parking charge goes on the Platinum card, plus a 15% parking discount and a 15% car care discount. But we'll be honest here, we don't use the valet or parking perks, and we just park at Park and Fly or other airport lots because, let's face it, they're cheaper. So these perks matter to us because we do use Pearson Airport and always fly out of Toronto. But if you live in Vancouver, Calgary, Montreal, or Halifax, do not give Toronto only benefits of dollar value in your personal worth it calculation.
The Canadian Platinum card currently has 2 membership reward points per dollar on eligible dining and food delivery in Canada, 2 points per dollar on eligible travel, and 1 point per dollar on most other eligible purchases.
Eligible prepaid hotels and car rentals through Amex Travel Online, well, they can earn 1 additional point per dollar. Membership rewards points can also be transferred 1-to-1 to participating airline and hotel programs, including Aeroplan, which is one of the biggest attractions for Canadian travelers. But we don't recommend transferring automatically. Instead, find the flight, confirm the award availability, compare the cash price, and then transfer. So here is our conservative annual calculation. Start with the $799 fee. Use the $200 travel credit and $200 dining credit on purchases you would make anyway, and the effective cost falls to $399. Annualize the NEXUS credit, and it's roughly $374.
8 lounge visits where the 2 of us can avoid $50 in airport food and coffee, well, that can cover the remaining amount easily. And 1 genuinely valuable fine hotels plus resort stay, Pearson benefits, insurance, hotel status, points, and Amex offers, well, they all become additional value.
And that's why the Canadian Amex Platinum is worth it for us. We travel frequently, use lounges, fly through Pearson, book hotels where the benefits matter, and actually remember to use the credits.
It's probably not worth the $799 fee if you travel just once or twice a year. Or if you rarely use lounges, probably won't use both annual credits, or mainly if you want the best possible points return on groceries and everyday spending.
One caveat I want to put in here is just remember that all offers, partners, and terms can change. So we've linked the official Canadian card and benefits in the description below.
Now, we do not work with American Express and don't make any money from this video other than the YouTube views that you are giving us right now. So give it a share to help someone deciding what travel card that they should use. And if you want more Canadian travel advice instead of a review copy from an American Express card, subscribe to the Planet D because we've traveled to 130 countries on all 7 continents over 20 years. We've made a lot of mistakes, so you don't have to.
Thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll see you in the next one.